Hello, I'm Dr. Naraniecki, and today at the Millis Institute we are looking at Virginia Woolf's A Room of One's Own. So this particular work is quite complex for a number of reasons. First of all, Woolf's work, particularly this one, is known as an essay, an experimental essay on the nature of inequality, particularly inequality when it comes to education, when it concerns women. So at one level, the important argument she's making is that due to the economic situation of women, the inability of women to be able to participate in the economy at large, and to accumulate wealth of their own, they are unable to found the kind of educational institutions that men have been able to found. And there is that sort of inequality, women being left out of men's educational institutions, and because of that, that provides an explanation as to why there are so few women of genius in the literary and artistic world throughout history. So her argument is that if only women could, something like this, if only women could participate more broadly in the economic sphere, they would have more money to endow to the arts and education, to enable women to further educate themselves and be able to produce works of literary and aesthetic genius. But there's kind of a circular problem here, in that without the education, women are not able to participate in the economy and commerce to the extent that men are. So they're caught in, women are caught in a trap, as Virginia Woolf sees. At one level, that's her central moral and feminist argument that she's making. At another level, there's something very interesting going on as well. Not that that's not interesting, that's immensely interesting. But there's also something that myself as an epistemologist find very interesting. That particularly if we turn to the end of chapter 3, we can really see that what this is not just an essay or a thesis on inequality between the sexes, but an essay on the nature of creativity itself, and what constitutes a creative product. So let me read through the second last paragraph. I think it's quite telling. And this acceptability of theirs is doubly fortunate, I thought, returning again to my original inquiry into what state of mind is most propitious for creative work. Because the mind of an artist, in order to achieve the prodigious effort of freeing whole and entire the work that is in him, must be incandescent, like Shakespeare's mind. I conjecture, looking at the book which lay open at Antony and Cleopatra, there must be no obstacle in it, no foreign material unconsumed. So there's almost a kind of a religious metaphysical language here. The reference to incandescence and unconsumed here. That the creative artist is releasing something that is in them, and I think when you're engaging in creative products, often you feel that kind of tension beforehand, that you're going to create something needs to be created, but you don't know what, and you don't know what the outcome is going to be. But it's only until after you sat down and finished a product that you feel a sense of relief, a sense that you had this unknown thing inside of you, and then you kind of, in a way, as Socrates would say, gave birth to this this object of creativity. That there must be no foreign obstacle in it, no obstacle in it, no foreign material. So in one sense, creating something, making something creative, producing a creative product is about producing something out of you, something that needed to come out, needed to arise out. It was a compulsion almost, something that needed to be done. However, just because it was inside of you, it doesn't mean it was of you in a certain sense. So if we in a way it comes from somewhere else, somewhere unknown. So if we look at and think this is a very crucial point. So in the final paragraph, she writes, "For though we say we know nothing about Shakespeare's state of mind, even as we say that we are saying something about Shakespeare's state of mind, the reason perhaps why we know so little of Shakespeare compared with Donne or Ben Jonson or Milton is that his grudges and spites and antipathies are hidden from us. We are not held up by some revelation which reminds us of the writer. All we desire to protest, to preach, to proclaim an injury, to pay off a score, to make the world the witness of some hardship or grievance, was fired out of him and consumed." So that language again of incandescent, fire, consume. Therefore his poetry flows from him completely free and unimpeded. If ever a human being got his work expressed completely, it was Shakespeare. If ever a mind was incandescent, unimpeded, I thought, turning again to the bookcase, it was Shakespeare's mind. So this is a crucial insight into the nature of expression and its relationship to creativity. So if ever a human being got his work expressed completely, so his work gets expressed completely, but not his personality. We don't know anything about Shakespeare's personality. Some people even say there was no single Shakespeare. I don't know if I'll buy into that argument. But the point is, we can't get a sense of his petty personal daily goings on when we look at his works. There's something objective about his work, in a sense, independent of Shakespeare, the person. The flawed, mundane Shakespeare going about his day-to-day life, none of that comes out in his work. In a sense, his work has something divine about it, something autonomous, that it really isn't important who Shakespeare was, who he was in love with, who he owed money to, what he'd like to eat for dinner. None of that is important. When you read Shakespeare, what is important is the objective content of his thought products, as Karl Popper would say. The objective content, what he produced objectively. And in that sense, similar to Haydn, the composer, when he heard his symphony performed, he was taken aback and he said, "It was not I who wrote this," implying that there was a divine hand. And people who produce great works of art, and not only people who produce great works of art, but anyone engaged in a creative pursuit, has this sense that what they are producing is somehow beyond them and independent of them. It has something divine about them, that they're channeling something divine, that they're accessing something divine, that the self is being removed at this particular time, that we are absent of ourselves. Surfers call this the flow state. And people of genius often they have this sense that when they are doing their work, they are absent of themselves. Not only are they absent of themselves while they are producing this great work of genius, but that somehow that by doing that they're also improving themselves. They are having a break, a mini holiday from their personality, their self, and all that they don't like about it. So they lose themselves in their work in order to improve themselves. So being creative is not about looking the part of the creative person, of dressing all in a certain way, all in black, like I'm a kind of romantic goth kind of thing, that I'm a creative person. When I go past the College of Art in South Bank, and I notice all the art students there, often putting such effort into showing that they are a creative person by what they dress and how they look on the outside. Well, that's not what creativity is about. Creativity isn't about the externalities of one's individual personality and self and how one expresses that, so much as it is about something mysterious that is inside, that we let go of, that only by sort of negating our personality, by letting go of ourself, that this creative product is able to come out. And where it comes from is a mystery. We don't know. Great artists, time and time again, don't, and not only artists but scientists have the same sense of sensation. They don't know where that creative idea came from, that creative work. Why did that work of Mozart come out onto the paper in absolute perfection, with not a hint of correction throughout the score? That is the mystery here, and I think what Woolf is lamenting in a way is that not enough women have that experience, have had that opportunity for that divine, glorious experience of producing creative works of art, owing to the economic and social oppression. But then she says something else, that, well, it's not just the people who have this great access to education, learning, arts and sciences that can produce great works of genius. In some sense, even people without an education have something of the genius about them. That genius is not restricted to the high ends of culture. That even amongst more primitive civilizations, or even, she mentions, even low working class cultures, opportunity for genius and creativity arise. They arise in the folk, they arise in the primitive, and they become refined at the high end, but they arise nonetheless in areas where people have not had sort of the economic and cultural and social capacity to really sit down and spend time in libraries, and she always pokes fun at that in a way, that the scholar hunched over, finding, she refers to as nuggets of gold, nuggets of truth in a book somewhere to produce something of genius. So in a sense, creativity and creative genius is not necessarily about that. The working class person without access to library, the woman at home unable to access library or books, in a sense, it produces creative genius when she hums a lullaby to her child. And that genius and that lullaby, who knows how the form it will take on in the future, might become the basis for a symphony in the future. Might go down the generations, might last thousands of years. I often mention the song cycles of Aboriginal Australians, that the sophistication of song cycles of Aboriginal Indigenous Australians who are able to navigate themselves across the Nullarbor Plain, across half of Australia, 4 hours by aeroplane, based upon a single song, and they memorize that song, and they can use that song to navigate the terrain and locate both the practical areas as well as the symbolic religious areas. So it's a high sophistication, creativity and genius does not necessarily require that sort of the formal access to libraries and this sort of thing. But nonetheless, so genius, the point is, genius can come out in any way. It has a way of coming out independently of social institutions. It has a way of coming out in the low areas of culture and society and civilization, as well as the high. Nonetheless, she sees the value of high expressions of civilizational creativity and genius, and she wants women to have the opportunity to be able to participate in that culture and in that creativity. So I think so rather than women having to have their domain of genius restricted to at this time to what stews they prepare for their family, what lullabies they sing to their kids, how they tend their vegetable garden. She wants to see that capacity for genius, and the genius that everyone has within them, that creative capacity and creative potential that everyone has within them, to be able to be realized at the highest cultural and social and institutional levels that society can afford and that society can offer. So in that sense, this is a feminist tract. I don't like to use the word feminist necessarily, but a tract on equality between the sexes, equality between men and women. So that's an important insight. But it's not a shallow political insight. It's a highly sophisticated epistemological insight. She is underpinned by highly sophisticated epistemological moves. And you'll find the same moves, the same problematics in 20th century philosophy of science. You'll find the same arguments about creativity, the autonomy of the created product from its creator, the way Shakespeare was somehow the creative products of Shakespeare extend beyond him. They are an exosomatic product, a product of genius, a kind of a timeless, eternal product that has been created by this finite, flawed, individual that only spent a few years on this earth, and a few years writing creative things. But his products have lasted throughout civilization so far, and will continue to last. So that's the point she's making, that, and the point that's been reiterated in the 20th century sort of epistemological discourses, that the products of one's creative activity extend beyond the individual person, have something infinite about them, have something divine about them, and live on beyond the lifespan of the individual. There's a measure of immortality about the created products of an individual. And is it fair that just men are able to have that sort of that undying, that infinite, that immortal legacy, where women do not. So I think these are the themes that I'd like to that I think we need to pay attention to when reading Virginia Woolf. It is a feminist tract, but it's a highly sophisticated one, and it's almost, you can almost see highly sophisticated epistemology underpinning the political and social and ethical arguments. So I think this work deserves a lot more attention, not just from literary scholars, perhaps also from the highly male-dominated area of philosophy of science and epistemology.